My best friend first stole my idea, then my friends, and finally, my life. He became me so perfectly that even I started to doubt who the real one was, but when he took the place that was meant for me, I decided to play his game. Only now, the rules are mine. My name's Jake, I'm 25, and I used to live the dream life. You know, the kind of life where everything just falls into place. Got my startup running, cash flowing in, people actually knowing my name. Yeah, I was living it up, was being the key word here. And then there's Max, my best friend since forever, the dude I thought had my back no matter what. Turns out, he's a backstabbing, two-faced manipulator, and I didn't even see it coming. At first, it was small stuff. Max started saying weird things like, "Oh, when we started the business," or "Remember how I got that investor on board? Seriously, you started the business?" But I brushed it off. Thought it was just his messed up sense of humor, you know? Like, whatever, let him talk. But then, things got real sketchy. Max started showing up with the same clothes I had, same shoes, same watch, even got the same haircut. At first, I was like, okay, cool, guess he likes my style. But then the texts started rolling in from my friends. Stuff like, "Hey, why is Max saying he came up with your business idea?" Or, "Is it true Max is running your startup now?" My stomach dropped. This wasn't just admiration. This was something way more twisted. At first, I tried to laugh it off. I mean, come on. Who would actually believe Max over me, right? But something felt off. Like, really off. This wasn't just some dumb joke. He was, replacing me. Slowly. Piece by piece. So, there I was, minding my own business, thinking everything was cool, but then I started noticing something really off. Max, my so-called best friend, suddenly became everybody's favorite guy at the office. He'd be hanging out with my colleagues like they were lifelong buddies or something. I mean, this guy barely knew their names a few months ago, and now he's cracking jokes and grabbing drinks with them. Like, really? Anyway, I show up at one of our regular team meetings, right? Everyone's sitting around, and as soon as I walk in, I feel it. This weird vibe, like I don't belong. You know that moment when you walk into a room and people act like you just crashed their party? Yeah, that was me. And guess who's at the center of it all? Yup, Max, acting like the king of the room? Then he stands up and goes, "So, when I was developing our project..." Hold up. Our project? Dot. Dude, are you out of your mind? You didn't develop Jack. I'm sitting there, heart pounding, thinking, did I just step into an alternate universe where I don't exist? But it didn't stop there. Oh no, the guy was on a roll. Every time he opened his mouth, it was like I was being erased from my own life. He accidentally forgot to mention my name, like I wasn't even part of the team. And people were eating it up, nodding along like he was some kind of genius. And the worst part? He didn't just take my credit. The dude was copying me. I'm talking full-on impersonation. My gestures, my way of talking. He even started laughing like me. At first, I thought, okay, he's just joking around. But no, it was more than that. It was like I was looking in a mirror, except the reflection wasn't me. It was him. Creepy, right? What freaked me out the most was how nobody else noticed. My friends, my coworkers, they all just went along with it. They didn't see that Max was morphing into me. It was like he had some kind of magic spell over them. I tried talking to him about it, in a chill way, like, "Hey man, what's going on? You're acting weird." But every time I brought it up, he'd just shrug it off, say something like, "You're overreacting, bro. It's nothing." Or worse, he'd laugh in my face, making me feel like I was the crazy one. At first, I wanted to believe it was just a phase. Maybe he was going through something, trying to boost his confidence by copying me. But the more I thought about it, the more I realized this wasn't some innocent game. It was way darker than that. At first, Max was just a copycat, like a weird, slightly annoying version of me. But then he took it up a notch. And by a notch, I mean he went full-on life thief. It wasn't just about wearing the same clothes or talking like me anymore. Nah, this guy started straight up stealing my entire existence. So one day, my boss calls me into his office. right? I'm thinking it's just another boring meeting about performance reports or something. But then he hits me with this. Jake, I hear you're working on some personal projects and might be leaving the company soon. What's that about? Personal projects? Leaving the company? What in the world was he talking about? I just sat there, blinking like an idiot, trying to process what he just said. And then it clicked. Max, that snake must have been feeding my boss all kinds of lies. He'd been talking to everyone, colleagues, friends, even my boss, like he was me, like he had the right to tell them about my future. I stormed out of that office, fuming. My blood was boiling. I had one mission, find Max and get some answers. When I did, I cornered him and asked, Dude, what the heck is going on? You've been telling people you're working on my personal projects. Are you out of your mind? And what did he do? He laughed, like it was all one big misunderstanding. Chill, bro. It's just a mix-up. They probably misunderstood what I said. He shrugged, like this was no big deal. But by then I wasn't buying his fake nice guy routine. This wasn't some harmless joke anymore. I could see it now. He was doing this on purpose. Max wasn't just borrowing parts of my life. He was erasing me from it. Little by little, he was nudging me out of the picture, making sure that he was the one everyone turned to. And guess what? It was working. My friends started acting weird around me. Conversations got shorter. People started dodging my texts. And when I did manage to get them to hang out, they'd always talk about how cool Max had been lately. It was like I'd been demoted in my own social circle, and Max had taken my place at the top. People started looking at him the way they used to look at me, like he was the one holding everything together. And the worst part? The guy was good, real good. Max had this charm, this ability to manipulate people without them even realizing it. He'd flash that smile, say all the right things, and bam, they were hooked. It was like he'd been rehearsing for this role his whole life, waiting for the moment when he could step into my shoes and kick me out of my own story. Every day I felt the ground slipping out from under me, like I wasn't even sure who I was anymore. Was I still Jake? Or was I just some placeholder while Max took over my identity, one conversation at a time? By the time I caught on to the full scale of Max's game, it was way too late. The guy had weaseled his way into every part of my life, and I mean every part. Personal things that were supposed to be mine, he just took over. Like my dating life. There was this girl, right? We'd been talking, flirting, the whole will they, won't they thing. I was just about to make my move, and then bam! Max slides in like he's stealing home base. Next thing I know, they're an item. He had her convinced that they were meant for each other from the start, or some other line of nonsense that made her swoon. And she bought it. Hook, line, and sinker. I swear, he could sell ice to a polar bear with that silver tongue of his. I was livid. Seeing them together felt like a slap in the face every time. And the worst part? He knew it. I could see that smug grin every time they walked by, hand in hand. But the real kicker? One day, Max shows up at my place, driving my car, wearing my jacket. He strolls up to the door with this casual smile, like he's just here to borrow a cup of sugar or something. And then he says, "Forgot my keys, bro. Just came to grab my stuff." His stuff? Are you kidding me? I stood there staring at him, and it hit me like a ton of bricks. He wasn't just messing with me. This wasn't some weird prank. This dude was straight up trying to erase me. He was trying to take over my entire life, piece by piece, until there was nothing left of me. At that moment, everything clicked. This was all part of his plan. Every lie he'd told, every person he'd charmed, every little thing he'd stolen from me. It was all leading up to this. He wanted to be me, and he was doing a pretty damn good job at it. I was so angry I could barely see straight. But what could I do? Call him out? Make a scene? Yeah, right. He'd just play it off like he always did, with that stupid, charming smile, and everyone would take his side. They always did. I watched him walk away, tossing my car keys in the air like he owned the place, like he owned me. And I realized I had to do something. fast, because if I didn't, there'd be nothing left of my life to save. Every day, I felt more like a stranger in my own life. It was like the walls were closing in. And guess who was pushing them? Max. The dude didn't just stop at stealing my girl and my car. Nah, that wasn't enough. He went all in, and made a social media profile that was a carbon copy of mine. Same bio, same posts, same pictures. It was freaky. People were commenting like it was actually me, saying stuff like, "Yo, Jake, you're killing it." Meanwhile, I'm sitting there wondering if I'm the one going insane. And let me tell you, that thought hit me hard. Like, what if this wasn't just some regular identity theft? What if this was something way darker? I started thinking maybe Max wasn't just trying to steal my life. He was after my soul. Like, what if this dude was draining me piece by piece until there was nothing left? Yeah, I know it sounds crazy, but when you see your own reflection walking around in someone else's body, you start questioning everything. I tried telling my friends what was going on. I mean, someone had to believe me, right? Nope. Every time I'd explain how Max was taking over my life, they'd just roll their eyes and hit me with, "Dude, you're just being paranoid. Max is a great guy. You should be lucky to have him as a friend." Lucky? Really? It's like everyone around me was under some kind of spell, and Max was the one pulling the strings. I swear, it felt like I was living in a horror movie, but the twist was that no one else knew they were in it. Every time I tried to pull people out of Max's web, they'd just get more tangled in it. "Jake, you're overthinking this. Max is just trying to help." Help? Yeah, right. He was helping himself to my entire life. At this point, I didn't know what to believe anymore. Was I losing my mind? Or was Max really trying to erase me? Either way, I knew one thing for sure. If I didn't act fast, there wouldn't be anything left of me to save. When it finally hit me that no one was going to believe me, not my friends, not my colleagues, nobody, I realized I had to take matters into my own hands. Max had everyone so fooled. It was like he'd cast some kind of spell over them. But not me. I saw through his act, and if no one else was going to help me, I'd just have to handle it myself. I started digging. Deep. I went through old emails, messages, everything, looking for something, anything, that would prove Max was stealing my life. And guess what? I found it. The dude had been emailing my clients, my business partners, pretending to be me. Smooth, right? He even managed to get his hands on my work laptop, telling everyone I'd asked him to help out. Yeah, sure, that sounds like something I'd do. I confronted him, full of rage, ready to blow the whole thing wide open. "Max," I said, barely keeping it together, "what the hell do you think you're doing?" And you know what he said? He didn't apologize. He didn't even flinch. He just gave me this smug grin and said, "You're slipping, bro. Everyone knows I'm better at this than you. Maybe it's time you let me take over." Take over? This guy was delusional. He actually believed he was doing me a favor, like I should just hand over my entire life and say, "Thanks." My blood was boiling. I mean, how could he be so calm, so confident? It was like he knew he had already won, but that's when the rage really kicked in. I wasn't about to roll over and let this guy take everything from me. I started planning. And this time, I was going to make sure he never saw it coming. I wasn't just going to expose him, I was going to destroy him. All right, so here's where things get real. I'd had enough of Max's games. This guy thought he could just walk all over me, steal my life, and nobody would ever know. Nah, not on my watch. I wasn't just going to sit there and take it, so I started plotting. And trust me, this plan was next level. First, I gathered everything. I'm talking emails, voice recordings, screenshots of conversations, where he was straight up pretending to be me. I got videos of him talking to my clients, acting like he was running the show. It wasn't even hard to find. Max got that cocky. The dude really thought I wouldn't catch on. So, I set the stage. There was this big business meeting coming up with some key clients. The type of meeting that could make or break everything. And of course, Max was ready to step in as the star player. But what he didn't know was that I had a little surprise planned. I rigged the whole thing. I set up an online live stream so everyone could see what was really going on behind the scenes. Max, as usual, started doing his thing. Smooth talk, throwing around business jargon like he invented the industry. He was working the room, shaking hands and making deals, all while pretending to be me. But what he didn't realize was that the whole meeting was being broadcast live. And everyone watching? They knew the truth. Then it happened. One of the clients, a big shot who'd been working with me for years, called him out. "Wait a second," the guy said, looking confused. "Didn't Jake say he was handling this deal personally? Why are you acting like you're running the show?" Boom. The whole room went silent. Max stuttered, tried to play it off, but it was too late. The jig was up. I could see the panic in his eyes as he realized what was happening. People started whispering, checking their phones, watching the live stream where all the receipts were laid out. It was like watching a slow-motion car crash, and I was loving every second of it. Max tried to deny everything, of course. He threw out every excuse in the book. "It's a misunderstanding. I was just helping out, blah, blah, blah." But nobody was buying it. Not this time. The proof was all there, laid out for the world to see. He'd been exposed as the fraud he was. Watching him squirm was pure satisfaction. But, of course, Max being Max, he still didn't want to give up. Even with his back against the wall, he kept trying to talk his way out of it. But the damage was done. The look on his face when he realized he couldn't talk his way out of this one, priceless. So, when the dust finally settled, Max? Yeah, he had nothing. The guy went from stealing my life to having his own completely trashed. Reputation? Gone. Job? See ya. Friends? Yeah, right. Everyone who used to hang on his every word suddenly disappeared. Turns out people don't like being conned. Who knew? Meanwhile, I was standing there, looking at the wreckage of what used to be this perfect friendship, feeling, well, let's just say it wasn't exactly the victory lap I imagined. Sure, I'd won. I got my life back. But man, the whole thing left a bitter taste in my mouth. I realized something through all this. Trust? That's the real currency in life. Forget the money. Forget the flashy job titles. If you don't have trust, you've got nothing. Max thought he could manipulate his way through everything, but once people saw him for what he really was, he was done. It was like watching a house of cards collapse, and honestly, it was kind of satisfying. But here's the thing. Yeah, I came out of this mess stronger, wiser too. I'm not the same guy I was before Max pulled his little stunt. I don't trust people as easily anymore, and honestly, that's not a bad thing. I've learned that sometimes the people closest to you are the ones holding the knife, ready to stab you in the back. So, yeah, I got my life back, but that doesn't mean everything went back to normal. There's always that lingering feeling, you know? That little voice in the back of my head reminding me to stay sharp. Because if Max could turn into my worst enemy, then who's to say someone else won't try to pull the same stunt? Now, I'm always watching, and I'm ready for whatever comes next.